Hello and welcome to the Affinity tank build. This is a build that has been created as an entry point into tanking for anyone requiring an easy to play one bar setup build. I'm well aware of the large number of military personnel in the ESO community and some of the troubles they may face while trying to enjoy the Elder Scrolls Online. The tank club is all inclusive to all players no matter what their situation, so this build is specifically designed to provide as much comfort and support as possible and focuses on the ease of a one bar setup. So firstly, I have chosen the Dragon Knight tank for this build, but you could apply this build to any class. You just have to use a kind of similar bar setup, convert the skills that are used that are specific for the Dragon Knight and convert them to similar skills for the other classes. My choice of race for this build is the Imperial. Imperial is my favourite tank race at the moment, and that's because you get a huge amount of stats, max health and stamina, and it reduces the cost of all your abilities by 6%, which is really important to help with sustain, and it also reduces the cost of your block and your break free, all the little important things that you need for tanking. For the Munderstone, we use the Atronach, and this is for the extra 310 Magicka recovery. This is always important. It's really important to have Magicka recovery for tanking so we can keep making sure we have enough resources to cast our skills. For our food, Bewitched Sugar Skulls is the best to go with. Increase max health, stamina and Magicka and health recovery. We get a nice amount of everything. You can just use any purple tri-stat food as well, and that will also be quite good. In terms of my attributes, I split my attributes 35 into health and 29 into stamina. This is because of my gear enchants and my jewelry traits. I've got a lot of stats, so I like to balance them out a little bit differently. As you can see, max Magicka is nearly 23,000. For the max health, 41,442. The maximum stamina, nearly 28,000. So huge stats all around. In terms of that Magicka recovery, 1,729 is really nice. Resistance is 24k. This is going to be absolutely fine for pretty much all of the content you're going to do with this build, and due to the CP that we're using, you would not need more than 24,700. Just a few of the other stats. Our block cost is 741. Block mitigation is coming in at 72%. For your potions, you'll always just want to use any tri-stat potion, any tri-restoration potion. You've got the crown tri-stat potions, or you can use the crafted tri-stat potions as well. So I do have two setups for this particular build. We've got a setup that you might use for a dungeon, and a setup that you might use for kind of boss fights. And the reason for that is because we're trying to squeeze as many things into one bar as possible to create that ease of use, to provide that comfort and make it easy to play. So in terms of the gear, we've got the Vateshran one hand and shield. Now this is from Vateshran Hollows. You don't need to get it imperfected. Just using it non-perfected would be absolutely fine. If this is too difficult to obtain, you can just use my other setup that we'll go over in a second, but I'll just go through this one first. So Vateshran one hand and shield. Now the reason we use this is so we can combine the pulling in of all enemies into one button. Okay, so firstly, the Vateshran one-hander. If you do have that perfected, you're going to get a little bit more max health, but it's not essential. The main bonus of this gear set, so when you deal damage with Power Bash, you apply Call of the Void to yourself for 2 seconds. Enemies within 12 meters are immediately pulled to you. So we use this to create the situation where chaining enemies in a dungeon is much easier. If you don't use this, you'd have to kind of recast the same skill over and over again. So if you can obtain this, this would be ideal for dungeon content. It also applies major maims at enemies for 10 seconds, reducing their damage done by 10%. So again, it's reducing damage, it's making fights easier, it's also going to chain in all ranged enemies within 12 meters. So it's really helpful to be able to create that situation where you can pull enemies in at the click of one button. For the one-hander, we are using Infused, and we're using the Daedric enchant that gives us well, it deals 1,235 Magicka damage, but because we're using it on an infused weapon, it restores 284 health and 115 Magicka and stamina every time it procs. So that's going to be really useful. It's going to help with sustain, it's going to help you maintain all of your resources. It's going to proc quite often because it's infused, so it's got a shorter cooldown and it provides more stats. You could also use a Crusher enchant, but it's going to be weakened because we're only using it on a one-hander, so it's not going to be as valuable. For dungeon content, when there's multiple enemies, it's probably not that big of a deal, because the whole idea of this build is to provide a lot of support in a small build. On the shield, we're using Sturdy and Tri-Stat to get a nice range of stats. For the other sets, we've got the Claw of Yolnahkrin set. Again, this does not need to be perfected. Perfected just provides some little extra utility. However, the non-perfected is pretty much just as good. So the main thing here is we're using 5 pieces of Yolnahkrin. It's going to be all Sturdy Tri-Stat. And we use this because it provides some nice bonuses. So we get 2-piece items with max health, 3-piece gives us minor Aegis, 4-piece gives us more stamina. And then the main portion of the 5-piece, when you taunt an enemy, you give yourself and your group minor courage for 15 seconds, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 215. And this effect can occur once every 8 seconds. So we're trying to provide as much benefit and support as we can as a tank, and just squeezing it into one bar. So as you can see, we've got the head, the chest, the shoulders, the legs, and the feet in Yolnahkrin, so 5 pieces. Our next set is Worm Cult. Again, all Sturdy Tri-Stat. We're using the waist and the hands. So we've got 5 heavy and 2 light. There is nothing wrong with using a setup like this. 1 light would be preferred, but obviously we're trying to work in 2 5-piece sets along with the Vatashran one-hand and shield. So we have to go with something such as Worm Cult on our waist and the hands, because those are the 2 smallest pieces of armor that have the least effect on your armor value. We're also using jewelry of Worm as well, so we've got the neck and 2 rings. That's in 3 Magic Recovery with Triune as well. So the benefits of using Worm, the spell damage is kind of the only wasted stat here, but we do get, with the 3 items we get max Magicka, 4 items we get some Magic Recovery, and the 5 items we get Magic Recovery again for ourselves. And we provide it as a group benefit as well. So it's a little group buff. And the reason why this is so good is this is going to help us sustain really, really well. So the whole kind of value of this build is we've still got 2 group buff sets, but we're able to heal ourselves. We're able to keep ourselves alive because we have a lot of Magic Recovery. With the skills, we need Pierce Armor. Pierce Armor is a taunt. You need a taunt as a tank, but it's also a nice debuff. It applies Minor Breach and Major Breach, reducing physical and spell resistance of enemies by 2,974 and 5,948. So really, really nice. Next we got Power Slam. You can use any more for this, Power Bash, whatever. I've gone with Power Slam. You're going to get a little bit more damage by using Power Slam, so if you do decide to use it in dungeon boss fights, it's not going to be completely useless, because it is going to still apply Major Maim from the Vatashran one-hand and shield, but was slotted when you block an attack and then you actually use this skill afterwards, it's going to increase the amount of damage that it does. So you're not using it for that, but if you did want to keep it on your bar, and you have got an abundance of stamina in a boss fight, you could make use of it to apply that Major Maim and to get a little bit of damage. Igneous Shield is a fantastic skill. It's your sustain tool, so if you spam Igneous Shield, you're going to get stamina back. So every time you cast Igneous Shield, you're going to get 990 stamina. That is one of the main reasons. The second reason is it's a group shield, 3,536 group shield. You're going to get a damage shield for yourself, which is almost 9k. It scales off your max health, so that's really, really nice. And you also gain Major Mending, which increases your healing done by 16%. So it's going to buff your self-heal as well. Green Dragon Blood. You need this as your main heal. The main function of this skill is to cast it when you are low on health. Throughout a fight, you'll just cast Igneous Shield to stay alive. And then Green Dragon Blood is your emergency heal. So when you reach under 50%, under 30%, you cast Green Dragon Blood to get a really good burst heal. If you cast Igneous Shield first and then Green Dragon Blood, it'll be an even bigger heal. So that is kind of the way you use it. You don't want to use Green Dragon Blood too soon. You want to be spamming your Igneous Shield, because that's going to give you loads and loads of different things. And then Green Dragon Blood is just going to give you that nice burst heal if you go low on health. Balance is the next skill. So this costs health and restores Magicka. Now this is not a problem. 5k health almost in cost to cast it. But the benefit of this is that You get healed up very quickly if you cast an Igneous Shield before you cast Balance. That's going to kind of overlap it and prevent you from taking too much damage while you've got the Balance debuff active. But it's a sustain tool, so when you combine Balance and then Igneous Shield, so you're going to spend health to get Magicka. You're then going to spend Magicka on Igneous Shield that's going to give you stamina, so it's a well-rounded way to make sure you never run out of resources. Balance also provides you with Major Resolve, which is your resistance buff. This provides almost 6k's worth of resistance and is a good way to help you reach that point in your resistances to make sure you can stay alive. In terms of your ultimate, Aggressive Horn, we're trying to use this. We're still trying to reach that point where we're able to provide a group benefit, but we're able to help ourselves. Aggressive Horn is a great tool for yourself. It's going to increase your max Magicka and max stamina by 10% for 30 seconds. It's also going to give you all the resources back. The ultimate cost is 242. Because of the passives of the Dragon Knight, when you cast this, you are going to get a lot of resources back. So everything we've got in this build is going to keep you alive, is going to help you sustain. So Aggressive Horn provides you with health and sustain. So it heals you, it gives you sustain. Balance gives you sustain. Igneous Shield gives you a shield, safety and sustain. So there's a lot here to help you stay alive. You shouldn't need to use gear sets that heal you. You shouldn't need to use gear sets that do anything other than buff the group, because the way it's set up, you've got all those utilities already in the one bar that you're going to be using. Okay, so we do have a second setup for this, and this is more for like boss fights or a more easy to put together kind of setup. So for this one, we have the Worm Cult weapon and shield, and then we use Engine Guardian on the head and the shoulder. One heavy on the head and a light piece on the shoulder. Now, those are in Sturdy and Tri-Stat as well. And the benefit to using this particular set, so it adds health recovery as the one piece and the two piece. When you use an ability, you have a 25% chance to summon a Dwemer, and it will restore 550 stamina or Magicka, or 1994 health to you every 0.5 seconds for 6 seconds, and it can occur every 10 seconds. So in this exact setup that we're in now on a Dragon Knight, by casting an ability, we can get one of 3 resources back. And the reason why this is great is because if we get health back, while it's channeling the health, we can be casting Balance to get Magicka. We can then use the Magicka and Igneous Shield to get back stamina. So no matter which way this procs, we're able to get whatever resource we need. If it's channeling stamina, then that's great. We need stamina for a lot of things. Dodge rolling, blocking, all that kind of stuff. So stamina is a great proc. If it procs Magicka, we just spam Igneous Shield, we get stamina back. If it procs health, we spam Balance and then Igneous Shield, and then we get stamina back. So no matter which way it procs, we're going to get some useful resource that is going to provide a huge benefit. And this is such an active monster set. It's there all the time. It is a very, very good set for sustain. In this situation, if you do need that sustain, or maybe you can't get the Vatashran one-handed shield, then this is the next best option. Again, obviously the Yolnahkrin pieces, and then for this one we've obviously switched the hands and the waist back to Yolnahkrin because we're using the Worm Cult weapon and jewelry. But the skills, this, like I say, is more suited to boss fights, and it's the same bar. The only difference now is I've put Engulfing Flames on for like an extra buff. You could drop this and switch it to pretty much anything that you need in a particular fight. So this is like a flex slot. So I've slotted Engulfing Flames because I thought, well, if you needed to provide a group buff, this is the easiest one, but this also would return Magicka. So when you create the burning effect, you get Magicka back thanks to the combustion passive. So this would potentially give you some extra sustain as well. Other skills that you could obviously use here, if you're in a boss fight that has enemies, you could use Unrelenting Grip to chain those in. You could use Protective Plate if you're in a fight with projectile damage. You can use Deep Breath if you need an AoE interrupt. You could use Choking Talons to grip enemies, debuff them. If you're trying to reduce your damage or provide some extra ultimate, you could slot Heroic Slash, hit the enemy with that. That's going to give you minor maim to the enemy, and it's going to also minor heroism that's going to give you ultimate back. You could also use defensive stance. If you're struggling with the incoming damage, you slot defensive stance. That's going to be something you can cast. If you're getting hit by projectiles, you can cast it to reflect them back at the enemy. You can also use this to reduce your block cost, and it's providing you with a little bit of damage mitigation as well. So that is another option. You've also got a couple of other skills, so Overflowing Ulta, if you want to provide a little bit of healing to yourself every second, and a little bit of help to your group as well with a synergy. You can slot in a Rage for a range taunt if that is something that you find to be a particular issue. Other skills, we've got Resolving Vigor. You could use Resolving Vigor for a little heal over time. You've got Razor Caltrops, which is a huge snare. So you can throw that down, snare the enemy, and then use that to kind of debuff them as an AoE Major Breach as well. And then finally, we've got Efficient Purge. There are some fights that need you to purge, so you can slot that if needed. And then finally, if you want to reduce some damage a bit further, Revealing Flare. You can slot this. Using either of those skills is going to provide you with 10% more Magicka recovery because of the Magicka Raid passive, but also things like Revealing Flare, it creates major protection. So if you slot this in that slot on your bar, you're going to get 10% reduced damage thanks to major protection by just having it slotted. You wouldn't use this. You just slot it on the bar and you get major protection. In terms of the champion points, green CP, obviously you just use whatever you want. If you want some battle-based benefits, Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, and Steed's Blessing are the best three in terms of in-combat utility. For the blue CP, we've gone with Duelist Rebuff, Enduring Resolve, Unassailable, and Ironclad. The most important CP in your blue CP are your Preparation and Elemental Aegis, along with Hardy. They're all really good. Preparation is the most important, but you want to get all of these because they don't have to be slotted, so they're the most valuable. But you want to take anything that's not slottable, so Quick Recovery is good. You definitely want to try and get Eldritch Insight and Tireless Discipline. Blessed is another good one because it's going to give you more healing done. Precision increases your crit chance, which includes crit healing. For the red CP, Balanced Vitality for more max health. Rejuvenation for a little bit more recovery. You want to have things like Defiance for reducing Break Free. You want to have things like Tumbling to reduce your dodge roll. Expert Evasion is one that I slot, but you could just as easily use something like Slippery if you want a cheaper Break Free. This is going to reduce the cost of your dodge roll to 0 once every 30 seconds, so that can be nice. But if you don't ever dodge roll, then obviously slot something else. So Slippery is a good one. Maybe something like Shield Master reduces the cost of your damage shield, so when you spam an Igneous Shield, it's going to be 10% cheaper when this is maxed out, so that's another option as well. You want Hero's Vigor, and you definitely want to have things like Sprinter and Tireless Guardian, Fortification, and then your final slottable is in the Walking Fortress. So Nimble Protector, take that, increase your movement speed by 6% while blocking. And then finally, this is the reason why we don't need loads of resistances, Brace and Anchor. Gives us 20% block mitigation. This is huge. We're at the block mitigation cap when we are in combat. So the block mitigation cap is 90%. As I showed you before, we have 72% block mitigation without this proccing. So this is only active in combat. So when we go into combat, we'd be at 92% block mitigation. And the cap is 90%. So we are over the block mitigation cap, which means we're going to be taking almost no damage whilst blocking. So that is everything for this build, guys. I hope you found this build helpful, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.